Hello my friends, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. I was playing with the inks today and I created this little arrangement and realized a few things that I did wrong. The colors that I chose were too dark and the outline that I wanted to create over them didn't show up. So I thought I would do the painting over again, and I selected colors that are kind of pastel looking. They don't have a lot of pigment, so once I start to outline, the outline will show up much better. So I decided for this painting that I was going to use a paintbrush instead of using the inks straight out of the bottle. The sheet of photo paper I'm using is only 5 by 7, so I needed to have more control. If you use the inks straight out of the bottle, they bloom, and it was too big. The bloom was too big, so you'll see what I mean. Using a brush gives me more control. So I used the color aqua to create my vase, and now I'm using the color lettuce for the greenery. And you can see just creating the sprigs of the greenery, just a line and shorter lines coming off of that longer line. Very simple. Nothing about this has to be perfect because we will be adding our detail with the micron pens later on. So now I think this color is salmon, and I wanted this to be my larger flowers. So you can see, using it straight out of the bottle, how quickly it begins to bloom. So I stopped it from blooming by drying it with the blow dryer. And those, of course, will be my larger flowers. Now I'm using a very pale pink color, and this is really important. To create these flowers, I started dotting with the paintbrush, but I wanted to create texture that would guide me in my outlining later on. So as it was drying, I continued to dot in the pink area, and as it dries, it creates this really nice texture that will be easy to outline later on. Now I'm using Dandelion, and these shapes will later be daisies or maybe even sunflowers. It's important when you do this type of composition that you use different size flowers because it creates more interest. So you want to have small, medium, and large. Now I'm using the color Cool Perry and creating 5 little dots that will later be my smaller flowers. And in some areas I only put down 3 little dots because it'll just be the profile of the little flower. Now I'm using the color Meadow, just for a different shade of green and to add a little bit more foliage. So I'm just using the brush to create roughly the shape of a leaf. And then I decided that my vase was kind of boring. So I know that there'll be a lot of detail on top, and I wanted a little bit of balance. So I just used the same color and added some lines to the vase that I will outline later on. And now I was going to start outlining, but I decided that I wanted to add some centers to some of these flowers. So I have a brighter orange, and I'm using a micro brush. However, the bottle was clogged, so I ended up with more ink on my hands than I did on the micro brush. But you can see I'm just adding a few little dots to some of the flowers, keeping it simple. So you can see the ink on my hands, and how I remove it is with some hand sanitizer. Just squirt a little on your hands, rub them together, and use a paper towel to wipe it off. It doesn't get it all off, but it gets it off enough that you can continue with your painting. So the marker that I decided to use is a 0.35. I wanted to keep the lines thin and delicate. So for the sprigs that I created with the color lettuce, you can see I just drew a line and then some elongated ovals, and I just drew a line straight through, keeping it pretty simple. And then for the smaller petals, leaves rather, I created a center vein and then the little lines that branch from there. And now here's a little thing that I've learned. In order to create those shaky, wavy, skippy little lines that I like, if I hold the pen towards the middle or towards the end of the pen, I have less control. So I get those wavy, skippy little lines that are perfect for this type of painting. The closer to the tip of the pen that I hold it, the more control I have. So try holding your pen. If you have trouble creating those skippy, wavy little lines, hold your pen higher up and you'll see that that works beautifully. So you can see here I'm creating those little flowers, just 5 little petals, keeping it simple. And in some areas where I only did 3 dots, it's just the profile of the flower. And the yellow areas are now going to become daisies. So I'm creating these long pointy petals. And that center dotting with the orange worked out perfectly for both the purple and the yellow flowers. And you can see that the pink area that I kept dotting, see the texture? That's going to be very easy to outline. It's a nice guide. Now I decided that these peachy salmon colored areas will be roses. So how I created the roses was I just created a swirly center, and as I started to go out with my petals, I started small, and as I continued creating them, I made them larger, making sure that they wrapped one around the other. And the tips are a little pointy, but it's a soft point. So you can see here, just creating a little swirl and then small pointy little petals. And as I go out, they become larger, and I make sure that they wrap one around the other. And they start to get larger and larger. And it's actually a really simple way to create a rose. May take you a little practice, but once you get it down, it's easy. See, 3 little petals, they start to get bigger and wrap around each other, and you have a rose. So while you watch me create these flowers, I'll remind you that all the products used are linked in the description box. And I wanted to remind you as well that I've created a Facebook group called Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can post pictures of your paintings learned from my tutorials, as well as techniques. We have a lovely and supportive group of members that will definitely inspire you and encourage you. So you can share your paintings, you can receive feedback, not just from me, but from our wonderful members as well. So I hope that you consider joining. It's a lovely way to share what you've learned, and it's very encouraging and inspiring for me. I do love to see what you do. So I hope I get to see you there. I'll add the link in the description box below. Now, if you don't see the list of supplies used, click on Show More or the arrow pointing down, and the list will expand. Now, once I finished with this painting, I did create a border. You know me and my borders. And I wanted to remind you that I went to Five Below and I bought these markers. I'll link the video of my art supply haul from Five Below in the description box. But the markers that I bought were alcohol ink markers, and each packet contained 12 markers. I bought one pack that was pastel and one that had brighter colors. The pastel markers happened to match the colors used in this painting perfectly. So of course I had to create my border. So stick around to the end of the video and you'll see the finished painting with the border. So now we're almost finished, and you can see that I tried to keep the detail in the leaves very simple. Some of them have a little bit more detail than others. But overall, I wanted the focus to be the flowers. I found this painting to be very relaxing. So if you're having a really stressful day, or you just need to unwind, this is the perfect painting. As you can see here now, I'm starting to kind of add a little bit of detail to the vase because I wanted balance between the top and bottom of the painting. So I kept it fairly simple, but it looks really nice. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you give it a try. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.